Chapter 2, Making Decision. 2.1 The Decision-Making Process. 2.2 Approaches to Decision Making. 2.3 Types of Decision. 2.4 Decision-Making Styles. 2.5 Decision-Making Biases and Errors. Learning Objectives. 1. Describe the 8 steps in the decision-making. 2. Explain the 5 approaches managers can use when making decision. 3. Classify decisions and decision-making styles. 4. Describe how biases affect decision-making. 5. Identify cutting-edge approaches for improving decision-making. Whenever you see a successful business, someone once made a courageous decision. Peter Drucker. Google CEO, Eric Schmidt, decided to buy YouTube in 2006 at $1.65 billion. Most analysts and competitors at the time thought Schmidt drastically overpaid. By conventional standards, they were probably right. But Schmidt saw the potential that others didn't. Today, YouTube earns more than $10 billion a year from selling display ad video ads. And estimates place YouTube's value at more than $100 billion. 2.1 Decision-Making Process. Managers at all levels and in all areas of organizations make decisions. That is, they make choices among alternatives. For instance, top-level managers make decision about their organization's goals, where to locate manufacturing facilities, what new markets to move into, or whether to cancel hit TV shows. Middle and lower level managers make decision about production schedule, product quality problems, pay raises, and employee discipline. Decision-making is the process of making choices by identifying a decision, gathering information, and assessing alternative resolutions. 2.1 Decision-Making Process. Step 1. Identify a problem. Every decision starts with problem, a discrepancy between an existing and a desired condition. Managers have to be cautious not to confuse problems with symptoms of the problems. For instance, is a 5% drop in sales a problem? Or are declining sales merely a symptom of the real problem, such as poor quality products, high prices, bad advertising, or shifting consumer preferences? Step 2. Identify decision criteria. Once a manager has identified a problem, her or she must identify the decision criteria important or relevant to resolving the problem. Whether explicitly stated or not, every decision maker has criteria guiding his or her decisions. See example of relevant criteria of PC, memory and storage 10, battery life 8, carrying weight 6, warranty 4, display quality 3. Step 3. Allocate weight to the criteria. Rarely are the relevant criteria equally important. So the decision maker needs to weight the items in order to give them the correct priority in the decision. How? A simple way is to give the most important criterion a weight of 10 and then assign weight to the rest using that standard. Of course, you could use any number as the highest weight. The key is assessing the relative importance of the criteria. Step 4. Develop alternatives. The fourth step in the decision-making process requires the decision maker to list viable alternatives that could resolve the problem. In this step, a decision maker needs to be creative, and the alternatives are only listed, not evaluated just yet. See example below. Step 5. Analyze alternatives. Once alternatives have been identified, a decision maker must evaluate each one. How? By using the criteria established in Step 2. Step 6. Select an alternative. The sixth step in the decision-making process is choosing the best alternative or the one that generates the highest total in Step 5. In our example, the decision maker would choose Microsoft Surface Book because it scored higher than all other alternatives. 2.2 Approaches to decision making. Although everyone in an organization makes decisions, decision-making is particularly important to managers. It's part of all 4 managerial functions. That's why managers, when they plan, organize, lead, and control, are called decision makers. Managers also make dozens of these routine decisions every day, for example, which employee will work what shift next week, what information should be included in a report, or how to resolve a customer's complaint. Keep in mind that even though a decision seems easy or has been faced by a manager a number of times before, it is still a decision. Netflix CEO Reed Hastings relies on what he calls informed intuition in the development of original programming, which plays a major role in the company's international growth. How manager makes decision making. Rational decision making describes choices that are logical and consistent and maximize value. Bounded rationality, decision making that's rational but limited, bounded, by an individual's ability to process information. Intuitive decision making, making decisions on the basis of experience, feelings, and accumulated judgment. Evidence-based management, the systematic use of the best available evidence to improve management practice. Crowdsourcing, relying on a network of people outside the organization's traditional set of decision makers to solicit ideas via the internet. 2.3 Types of decision making. 1. Structured problems and programmed decisions, repetitive decision that can be handled by a routine approach. Managers have made decision many times before there are procedure, rule, and policy to follow. 2. Unstructured problems and non-programmed decisions, new or unusual problems for which information is ambiguous or incomplete. No rule to follow since the decision is new. These decisions are made based on information, a manager's intuition and judgment. Comparing decision types. 13. Characteristic programmed decisions. Non-programmed decisions. Type of problem, managerial level, frequency, information, goals, time frame for solution. Solution relies on structured, lower levels, repetitive, routine, readily available, clear, specific, short, procedures, rules, policies. Unstructured, upper levels, new, unusual, ambiguous or incomplete, vague, relatively long, judgment and creativity. 2.4 Decision-making biases and errors. 1. Directive style have low tolerance for ambiguity and seek rationality. They are efficient and logical, but their efficiency concerns result in decisions being made with minimal information and with few alternatives assessed. Directive types make decisions fast and they focus on the short run. 2. The analytic type has a much greater tolerance for ambiguity than do directives decision makers. This means that analytic managers would be best characterized as careful decision makers with the ability to adapt to or cope with new situations. 2.4 Decision-making biases and errors. 1. Individuals with a conceptual style tend to be very broad in their outlook and consider many alternatives. Their focus is long range and they are very good at finding creative solutions to problems. 2. The behavior style characterize decision makers who work well with others. They're concerned with the achievement of peers and those working for them and are receptive to suggestions from others, relying heavily on meetings for communicating. This type of manager tries to avoid conflict and seeks acceptance by others. 2.4 Decision-making styles. High, low, rational, intuitive. Enjoy problem solving, use considerable information and data, innovative, thrives on control. Driven by results, aggressive nature, act rapidly, strong verbal communicator, use rule. Achievement, oriented, creative, comfortable with what-ifs, open-minded with a broad outlook, enjoys coming up with new ideas. Generally supportive, a team player, empathetic nature, looks to others for advice, persuasive nature, good communicator. 2.4 Decision-making biases and errors. When managers make decisions, they may use shortcuts, or heuristics, to simplify or speed up their decision making. Heuristics can be useful because they help make sense of complex, uncertain, and ambiguous information. Even though managers may use heuristics, that doesn't mean those shortcuts are reliable. Why? Because they may lead to errors and biases in processing and evaluating information. 1. Overconfidence bias. Individuals overestimate or have excessive confidence in their ability to predict or foresee future events. This will cause the decision maker to unsupported or risky decisions. 2. Hindsight bias. This is the tendency of individuals to see past mistakes or occurrences as obvious. After the event has occurred, individuals believe that they did or should have seen it coming. This is important when evaluating other decisions. 3. Anchoring effect. Anchoring effect describes how decision makers fixate on initial information as a starting point and then, once set, fail to adequately adjust for subsequent information. First impressions, ideas, prices, and estimates carry unwarranted weight relative to information received later. Being overly influenced by the first piece of information we receive. First impression bias. 4. Framing bias. Framing bias occurs when decision makers selected and highlight certain aspects of a situation while excluding others. By drawing attention to specific aspects of a situation and highlight them, while at the same time downplaying or omitting other aspects, they distort what they see and create incorrect reference points. Being influenced by how information is presented rather than the data itself. 5. Immediate gratification. This is the tendency to make the immediacy of a potential solution to a problem or situation the most important criteria. The result is the failure to consider all available options and setting for a subpart outcome form a decision that fails to deliver all available value. 6. Selective perception. When decision makers selectively organize and interpret events based on their biased perceptions, they're using the selective perception bias. This influences the information they pay attention to, the problems they identify, and the alternatives they develop. 7. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is to actively look for information or facts in a situation that support a particular choice or decision. This approach causes the decision maker to ignore evidence to the contrary. This can also cause a failure to consider contrary information of positions. Placing more value on information that supports our existing beliefs. 8. Availability bias. Availability bias is a focus on immediate information or situations that come to one's mind. The result is that we tend to believe the information or experience that we recall or demonstrative or explicative of a situation or scenario. Placing more value on the first idea that comes into your head. 9. Representation bias. When decision makers assess the likelihood of an event based on how closely it resembles other events or sets of events. That's the representation bias. The decision maker believes that the situation represents all of the characteristics of the population of which it is a part. 10. Randomness bias. The randomness bias describes the actions of decision makers who try to create meaning out to random events. They do this because most decision makers have difficulty dealing with chance event, though random events happen to everyone. 11. Sunk cost bias. Occurs when decision makers forget that current choices can't correct the past. They incorrectly fixate on past expenditures of time, money, or effort in assessing choices rather than on future consequences. To make choices in a way that justifies past choices, even when the past choices no longer seem valid. 12. Self-serving bias. Decision makers who are quick to take credit for their successes and to blame failure on outside factors are exhibiting the self-serving bias. Thank you.